Hello and welcome back to the shop. I know I haven't really been putting up a weekly video lately. It's kind of tough with all the crazy snow we've been having. I mean, I got about 4.5 feet of standing snow in my yard, and right now from cleaning the roof, it's pretty much up to my windows. And with that comes going crazy at work. Everything's been breaking just from the pure cold. I mean, it's been probably in the single digits for the past week or so, maybe a little bit longer. So I really haven't just had a lot of time down in the shop here to do stuff. I do have some projects planned. I do have to make the rings. I want to make the tailstock chuck, and I have a couple other things that I do want to do. It's just taking me a little bit to get to them, but we will. So this video is kind of something I want to do. I want to put out a video like this, maybe once a month, depending on how this goes, and it's going to be geared specifically towards beginners. So this week we're going to be taking a look at measuring tools, basically the generic measuring tools that you're going to be seeing the most in the form of calipers, micrometers, and just regular scales, and how to read them, and you know what their usefulness is for. I know most of you know it. Know what all these are for, but maybe somebody's just starting out, this will help them out. So like I said, once one video a month, I kind of want to get into doing something along the lines of this, geared specifically towards beginners. This week here we'll take a look at the measuring tools. Maybe in subsequent episodes we'll take a look at just dial indicators and the differences between them, and you know, and then we'll graduate on to playing with speeds and feeds and seeing what it does to the finish of a turn part, and then also you know, how to turn accurately to a dimension, how to thread, things like that for people that are starting out. So we'll see how this one goes. If you guys like it, obviously give it a thumbs up and just throw something in the comments that you think it's a good idea, and maybe we can keep this series of things going. So in the meantime, let's head over to the bench here, and I think we're going to start off with scales, the easiest thing and most common thing you'll see around, and we'll go from there. Okay, to most people, machining means very accurate measurements and very, very precise, accurate fits. And to some extent, that's what it means. But in all honesty, your most versatile measuring instrument is just going to be a regular 6-inch scale. And here are a couple of flavors here. And let me just make sure the numbers are facing the way I want them to face, so I can demonstrate this. And these are all different makes, but all a 6-inch rule. Now, if you look here, they're the biggest difference between these and, say, your off-the-shelf little ruler that you can get at a drafting place or something like that is going to be the graduations, and they're universally numbered. And see, this one here is a 5R, this is a 6R, this also here is a 5R, and this is a 4R. That's what that one is. Okay, so let's take a quick peek of these. This 4R is 64ths, 30 seconds on one side, and 16ths and 8ths on the other. The 5R, the 5R here is 30 seconds and 64ths, hundredths, tenths and hundredths. And the 6R is 50ths and 100ths, 30 seconds and 64ths. Okay, and these are useful for just you know, measuring out rough distances, and even doing a lot of layout and everything. You can, and actually make good scrapers also, for any kind of schmutz you might encounter. But it's a terrific all-round tool, and you should definitely have one right by your lathe. It especially works well for when you got to part off a certain distance or something like that. And again, they come in all different kinds of flavors. You can see this one has a groove here. This one is meant to be put into a little square. It's a double-sided square. This one here is a 12-inch 5R, and this one here is a flexible rule. You can see you can bend it. Now you're not going to be able to, you know, say measure a circumference or anything like that accurately, but if you get a little curve to a part or something that you got to get in there, sometimes these flexible rules really work wonders if you got to measure something in there. And also, I just want to show you guys real quick. I know if you watch a lot of guys and stuff, and you'll see them using you know, combination square, something along the lines like this, which this one here is a Starrett. Now, and then you'll go look at a Starrett square, and they're going to be brand new, probably like $120, $130, and used probably anywhere between you know, on eBay and stuff like that, 30, 40 bucks. Well, there's a reason for that, and let me put it side by side with a like $15 hardware store carpenter square. This is all iron. This is all steel or cast iron, and this here is aluminum. Okay, and the actual blade itself, this is just printed on the top. Okay, so it's gonna wear out. This is really deep. You can hear my fingernail scratch over that, but you really can't on that. These deep grooves are really good for setting tremor points, dividers, and things like that. And the biggest thing with these, I did measure the actual 90-degree angle it makes here with using a light and a machinist square, and they're both relatively the same. You can see some light through, but they make a decent 90-degree angle. But the biggest thing is, in all honesty, that's like an eighth of a turn, and this thing slides freely. All right, and it locks in there really tight. This, on the other hand, is an eighth of a turn, and I can barely get that through. So, if you're looking for a combination square that you want to use for machinist work, I mean, you can get by with this for general layout things, the carpenter's one, but you'll be much happier with a machinist one. It doesn't have to be a Starrett. It can even be the Fowler ones or a Brown & Sharp or something like that. But you're much better off with the actual the steel ones rather than the aluminum ones. And another cool thing I wanted to show you was this Starrett rule clamp. It's a number 289A, and what these are meant for is to take the combination square. Let me just take this off. Combination square blade, and that fits right in the top there. You can tighten that down. Then you can take a regular 6-inch rule, or even a 12 or something bigger, and that clamps right in. Tighten it down, and you get a nice 90-degree angle. Plus, you can measure off of this. Use the scale to measure distance on there and multiple things. And you can put even, here's a 12-inch one. You can put the 12-inch one in there too. It's a kind of nifty little gadget. But for general purpose work, general purpose layout, a nice machinist scale, indispensable. So now let's go on to probably the one of the most used measuring tools that you're going to come across, and that's going to be calipers. And we'll take a look at 3 different types. We're going to take a look at some calipers. And calipers can be used to measure depth. They can measure inside diameter, outside diameter, length. They can be used to scribe. They can be used for many purposes. And I'll show all those as we go through it. Now, people have many ideas of how accurate a caliper can be, and some of them are actually really accurate and meant to be really accurate, and I'll show you one of those that I would trust. But as far as dial calipers go, and even digital calipers go, I would trust them to be consistently somewhere between 2 into 4/1000ths of the actual diameter. And if I were to need anything more accurate than that, then I would use a micrometer. And the reason for that is you know, varying pressure of your finger on there, and also in the case of dial calipers, it's just a rack and pinion. So there is some slop in there no matter what. But there are some, like I said, some very accurate calipers, and I'll show you those. So the three major types of calipers are going to be Vernier calipers, digital caliper, and dial caliper. Now there are also two different versions of a dial caliper and digital caliper. Most digital calipers look like this, while some have a little thumb wheel on there. This one is a dial caliper that does not have a thumb wheel. This one does. In terms of reading them, this is the easiest to read, this is the next easiest to read, this is the hardest to read. Okay, so let's start with the easiest one and work our way up. Okay, so this is your generic digital caliper. Now this is a Harbor Freight special, so it's really nothing special. But they all look relatively the same and act relatively the same. Personally, I don't like digital calipers. And there are two reasons for it. I find them more bulkier. I know it's not actually true. I just don't like the way they feel in my hand. And the fact that most didn't have a thumb wheel on them, but now I've kind of gotten off the thumb wheel anyway. But and the major drawback is battery. It uses a battery, which of course is going to die at the most inopportune time possible. But as far as reading the caliper, super easy, because all you're doing is reading off the digital display. So whatever that reads, that's your measurement between here and here, or here and here. So you can use these, like I said, it's like any other caliper. There's your outside measurement, or you can use these other two tines here for inside measurement, or you can see that little rod on the bottom. You can use that for depth measurement, and you're just directly reading off the display here. Now these here will go down to 5/10,000ths of an inch right there. Now, would I trust them that much? No. Like I said, I would trust these to be somewhere between 2 and 4/1000ths accuracy. Now, the very good thing about these is you can very easily, you see the millimeter inch button, switch back and forth from imperial and metric on the fly, which is really good for bearings, because most bearings are metric. Okay? Now, another cool thing you can do with these, let me just set this to 1 inch here, or as close to it as I can. Oop. Trying to get it. Alright, so we have it set at 1 inch, right? So say I have a part that I'm measuring 1 inch, that I want to get down to 1 inch, right? So I have it set for 1 inch. I can zero it there. So this is the part that I want to turn down to 1 inch diameter. All I have to do now is measure it. Right there, and that tells me I have 501/1000ths to go until I get to 1 inch. So you can use this as kind of like a mini calculator. It's pretty cool. That's one of the big benefits of a digital caliper. Like I said, the biggest drawback of a digital caliper would be battery life, and also some of these, they're not coolant proof. If you get coolant on them, that can seep into them. Same thing with oil. There are special ones that are coolant proof, but then again, as long as you're not bashing your measuring tools around, which I don't recommend anyway, you should be fine. But that's kind of the basics of the digital caliper. So now the next hardest to read is going to be a dial caliper. So I have those two versions. We'll pull those out and we'll take a look at them. Okay, so we have two versions of dial calipers here. And the only difference between these The functionality is 100% the same, but the only difference is these mid-tutorials here have a thumb wheel, which is like a friction wheel, which will allow you to put your thumb on there and give you the pressure against your part, while these Brown and Sharps do not have a thumb wheel. Okay, again, it's mainly personal preference. I always desired the thumb wheel until I got these Brown and Sharps, and I love these ones better. Okay, so let me zoom in on these and I'll show you how to read them. Okay, so you can see the basic layout here. And what we have is a set of jaws here, one movable, one stationary. This here will let you measure the outside diameter of a part, while these here would let you measure the inside diameter. So if I wanted to measure the outside diameter, you get it right there. If I wanted to measure the inside diameter, that's the inside diameter. And on the bottom here is a little rod that comes out when you extend that movable jaw. That you can use as a depth gauge and measure depth with it. Okay? So this, to reset the zero, you would undo this little lock and you can rotate this bezel and just line up the zero with the little pointer. And you can see there's a scale on the actual bar itself, and it's graduated in 100,000ths of an inch. Okay? And you can see that this dial is graduated in each line is 1,000th of an inch, and there are 100 lines. Okay? So, let's just open it up to an arbitrary measurement here. And we'll read that. So, each one of these lines is 100,000ths of an inch. Let me get a pointer here and maybe zoom in just a hair more. So there's 0, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're not quite to 6. So we're 500,000ths, but not quite to 6. Now we read off the dial. So we go around here and we line up with 30. So the measurement between here and here, or between here and here, is 530,000ths of an inch. So let me just do a bigger measurement here. So here's 0, here's 1 inch, here's 2 inch, 2 inch 100,000ths, 2 inch 200,000ths, 2 inch 300,000ths, 2 inch 400,000ths. We're not quite to 5, so now we got to read off the dial. 20, 5, 6. So 2 inch 426. So pretty simple to read. You just got to do a little bit of math, but pretty simple to read and pretty simple to use. Now another good thing about these is if you have a piece of flat stock, like so, and say I have to measure 1 inch in from the edge, you can use your scale if you want to, make a 1 inch line, make another 1 inch line, and then connect them with a scriber. Or if you just need to do something really quick, you can set this for 1 inch. You can lock that down. You can run the edge of one jaw on the outside and drag the other one across. And you get yourself, I don't know if it shows up really well. I'm trying to get the light. There it is right there. You can get yourself a scribe line across there. Now, you'll end up wearing out the points eventually, just know that. But if you need something really quick that isn't super accurate, it's a really easy way to get yourself a line on something. Okay, so now we're going to take a quick look at a Vernier caliper and how to read it. It's probably something that most people are not going to come across anymore, but we'll take a peek at it anyway because we have one. Well, one thing I almost forgot to tell you, when you're using your calipers, you got to make sure that they're perfectly perpendicular to the piece that you're measuring. So to do that is take them and put moderate pressure on the thumb there, and then rock them back and forth. Alright, so you can see right there we stop and then we start to move again. Right there we stop and then we start to move again. So right where you stop, that's the measurement that you want to take. So right there is 501, 101, sorry, 101 thousandths. Same thing for the inside diameter. Take them and rock them back and forth and measure your inside. So that's 566. And also sometimes give them a nice little turn like this, or get them in the center and just give them a little wiggle. Okay, so now this one is completely different than all the other ones. This is a Vernier caliper, but this is a Starrett number 123 master bar. This is hardened and ground in a stabilized bar, and it's super accurate. You can see it actually looks a little bit different than the other bars, but same different premise. This is a 12-inch reading dial, even though it goes all the way out to 14-inch rather, and I'll show you why. It's only 12-inch. So you can see it has no dial or anything. It has one scale going all the way down, actually two, one here and one here. All right, and I'm going to zoom in on this. It has one scale here, and they're offset a little bit. You can see there's a 0 here and a 0 here. And these are, each line on this bar is 50 thousandths of an inch. Now there are two other scales. There's another scale here and another scale here that goes from 0 to 50. And each division in those two outside scales is 1/1000th of an inch. Now, unlike the other ones that had the inside measuring jaws on the back, the inside measuring ones on this are right here, between here and here, and then your regular outside measuring jaws. Now, the cool thing about this is this has a fine adjust on it, so you can actually lock this down and move this little knurled screw and get a really fine movement on this bar here. So let me zoom in here and we'll show you how to read this. Okay, so there's the bar, and you can see it goes all the way to 14 inches, but if you were to move this all the way down to the end, you can see that that scale ends at about 12 inches, or that 0 meets 12 inches there. So you can only really do about 12 inches with these calipers here. So you need to slide it up to an arbitrary measurement on one side here. Okay. You can see there are two scales, like I said, offset. Each line is 50 thousandths on these scales. And you can see you have two other scales on the outside, which each line is 1/1000th of an inch. You see this says inside, this says outside. So if you're measuring the outside diameter of something, you use this scale on the bottom. If you're measuring the inside diameter of something, you use this scale on the top. Alright, so how do we read this? Okay, so how do we read this? Well, right where this 0 is here, that's our measurement, okay? So now we have to figure out, we start off just like the dial calipers. So each one of these lines is 50 thousandths. So 0, 50, 100, 150, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 50 thousandths. We're not quite to 700 thousandths. So 650 thousandths, okay? So now on a dial caliper, we would read our dial from there. Well, we don't have a dial, but what we have is a vernier scale, okay? So what we care about is in between this vernier scale here, which is between my fingers, which goes from 0 to 50, we have to figure out which one of these lines here on this scale line up with one of these lines on the bar. Now these numbers here don't mean anything at this point, okay? We're reading off of this scale, the Vernier scale. So we look, and you can see the 0 is not lined up with anything, 15 is not lined up with anything, 20 is not lined up with anything, but we're getting really close to 7, not bad, 7.5, not bad. This 8 looks like it's dead on right there. So we look, that 8, that's 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay? So 23 thousandths on our Vernier scale is what we're adding to the 650 thousandths. So 650 plus 23, which will be 673. So this measurement here is 673 thousandths. So let's do another quick measurement here. Okay, let's take a look at another measurement here real quick. So here's 1 inch, 100, 200, 300, and we're just over 300 thousandths. So we look to our vernier scale. We want to find which one lines up perfectly. So right here, these two lines look like they line up pretty good. So here's 15, there's 14. So it'll be 1 inch, 314 thousandths. And that's how you read a vernier scale. Okay, so now let's take a look at some micrometers.